In today's episode, I talk about snap cap versus screw cap pens, Atelier Gargoyle versus Jeroboam sealing wax, and what in the world have we done to Monday matchup. Well, hey there everybody, I'm Brian Goulet here of GouletPens.com, and today is episode number 138 of Goulet Q&A. Hit a big milestone last week with doing episode number 1000. Not episode number 1000, video number 1000. So the 137th Q&A was our 1000th published video. And then we hit another milestone this week, which was hitting 50,000 subscribers on YouTube. And I'm just like, what? It's like, these are pens. Like, people know that, right? Like, it's just pens and that's it. No, seriously though, I'm so honored, so humbled, and just my whole team is ecstatic. We're all giving each other high fives and stuff like that. It's really, really cool. Like, here, fountain pens, you know, I started doing this, 7 years ago, and had no idea that it would ever be 50,000 subscribers on YouTube. So it's not just me, it's my whole team. Jenny, especially our videographer. Colin is rocking YouTube comments and helping us out. I mean, just it's a group effort at this point, and just mad props to the whole Goulet team. And thank you to all of you who are subscribing. Really, really, really cool stuff. And I did want to give you a heads up. We were planning to do a giveaway when we hit 50,000 subscribers. We thought we were going to hit it next week based on kind of the projections that we were getting of subscribers, but we had a huge influx this week. I don't know why. It looks like we might have got picked up and featured on YouTube based on some of the comments, and people are like, I don't even know how I got here, but I found your channel. There's always a little bit of that because YouTube is kind of a rabbit hole that if you follow it deep enough, you'll always end up with cats playing piano. But you know, sometimes you end up on fountain pens, and so we've gotten a lot of new people. So if you're new to this channel, hello, welcome. And yeah, it's pretty cool. So we're gonna do a contest, but I gotta say we weren't quite ready to do it this week. So maybe we'll look to do it next week. I wanna make sure we really button down the contest rules. Partly I'm still cleaning up some of the contest changes we've made on Instagram, which I am gonna talk about. So I'm not like quick to jump into a contest that I wasn't quite ready to do yet. So, but I am gonna be giving away a 2016 LE Vanishing Point Guilloche to someone for a celebration of our 50,000 YouTube subscribers. So I don't know exactly how we're going to do that yet logistically, but know that that is coming down the pike. So that's pretty cool. Some other things we've had going on. We have a new HR manager inside our company, Jen. She's awesome. She is getting to know everybody here. She's been here for a couple days at this point, but you know, she is going to be responsible for helping to drive our culture here at Goulet. We have 40 of us here now, and it's going to be growing even throughout the rest of the year. So that's pretty exciting. And we continue to grow, continue to thrive, and that's really awesome. All your support is amazing. It takes a lot of people to make it happen like it does around here, not just on the media side of things, but you know, for the fulfillment, customer care, inventory, really HR, everybody. It's truly a team effort around here. So Jen is going to be an integral part, and continuing to make this an awesome place to work so that everybody who works here is happy and then provides you awesome service, because happy people just work better, and it's just a better place to be. So that's really cool. Excited about that. We also, in my personal life, my son finished his first week of first grade last week, and he is just loving it. First grade. We had to ask the teacher on open house night or whatever. We were like, what is first grade anyway? Like, I don't really remember it. What do you do in first grade? And it's very reading intensive. So our son loves to read. He's a good reader, and we love reading with him. So it's going to be a really, I think, enjoyable year for us with our son in first grade, and he's had a great first start. And last year when he started kindergarten, he got sick like the first week that he was there because of all the new germs, but he's not sick yet, so yay. Knock on wood, right? So that's been cool. Also, so getting into some product stuff now, I mentioned last week the Noodler's 308 ink cartridges, went into them a little bit in depth. We have been testing them a little bit and have found a little bit of inconsistency in them fitting some of the Nippon sets. So I'd initially said if you have a new Nippon set, it'll fit. Some of the challenge that we've had is it's not fitting as consistently as we would like, and we can't tell which Nippon sets that we have are new and old because we're getting mixed stock unless we open them all up, and it's kind of a giant hassle, and we're getting some pushback on that, being able to provide that as a guarantee. And so here it's like this, essentially a $1 product that now is frustrating a bunch of people because they're going to buy a $75 pen, and we can't with a lot of accuracy and predictability say, yes, you will be able to use this on this pen that you're looking to buy. So as much as that kind of stinks, and we would love to be able to do that service, we can't like open up every single pen and test every single one of these on that pen. It's really cumbersome. And I think more of it's on the customer care side of things. Like if somebody's asking, hey, if I was to buy this pen, would this thing fit it? We'd be like, I don't know, it's gonna be a crapshoot. So we have basically said, we're not able to do that anymore. We're adjusting all that on their product descriptions and everything. So Nippon sets are going to be a crapshoot, but these will fit the Ahab. So that we know. There have been some design changes and stuff with the Nippon sets. That's why it's not quite as reliable as we would like to have originally promised. So had to kind of backtrack on that a little bit. I'm very, very sorry about that. Got some new products that have come in. The Pilot Vanishing Point Guilloche, which I just mentioned that we are going to be giving away, comes in this cool box. Flips open like that. It's got a nice little black guilloche pattern on it. So Pilot changed their boxes a number of years ago. They used to have like these, big, like, I don't know, they kind of look like makeup cases with this buckle on it. Some people loved it, some people did not, but they changed it anyway. Now it's this style box, this white, and then it has a trim color that matches whatever the color is for that year. They've been doing that the last few years. I think they started changing it with the copper one a couple years ago, and then they had the Twilight last year. So to show you this pen, it's pretty cool. It's not anything like super flashy. Here's my remote. So if I zoom in a little bit, I'll see if I can show you this pattern. It's very subtle. So if you like something a little more subtle than the Twilight, I think that's what they were going for. The Twilight was pretty loud from a color standpoint. So this pattern, it's guilloche, so it's this kind of like wave pattern, sort of like a barley pattern, if you will. But it's just an engraving that's in kind of a wave that goes up the whole pen. I'm not getting like super great detail because it's so shiny and glossy, but there you go. So you can kind of see what's going on there. So it's got like this kind of straight line that goes all the way down, and then a little guilloche pattern that's maybe a couple of millimeters, and then a straight line, and then the guilloche. And it's really kind of cool. It's subtle, but it has kind of an interesting texture to it. So it's not a harsh texture at all by any means, but it gives it a little bit more grip to the pen than maybe it normally does. Decent weight to it, a vanishing point, so it's the same nibs and everything as what you're used to. They only come with the medium nibs though. That's the thing about these special editions. Excuse me, limited editions. And then they are numbered as well. This is number 200. Oh, that's kind of cool. Out of 2016, so they make them based numbered off the year that it is. So that's kind of cool. Some other pens. I'm going to stay zoomed in here. Forgive me, it looks a little weird, but I'm going to stay zoomed in. I'm going to show you the Aurora Optima. We have launched select ones on our site because we haven't gotten all of them in yet. But just a little bit about the Optima. Aurora used to sell this pen for $800, but they've lowered the price to $500 on most of the models. Some of the ones with gold trim and with the stubber italic nibs are more, but that's where they start. They are celluloid. They are a piston fill. They have an ink window. They have an ebonite feed, 14 karat nib. Really pretty impressive pen. It's very comfortable. It's really, it's definitely a fancier looking pen. I'm not going to say, it's something that you have to, get fancy with, but it's definitely got some nice trim and stuff like that. Really just appealing pen. It's very different experience if you have experience with the Aurora Ypsilon. Entirely different pen. Different feel, much smoother nib. Nib has got a little bit of response to it. It's not a soft or flex nib, but it does have a little bit of give to it, whereas normally the Ypsilon nibs are pretty stiff. So we have some of those in select nib sizes and colors coming out on the site. We'll have those more fully in the next couple of weeks. Also have the TWSBI Mini, all in silver. So this is essentially a TWSBI Mini with some aluminum parts that are normally plastic. So it's got an aluminum grip, it has an aluminum piston rod in here, and then an aluminum piston mechanism up in here. So it'll function, very similarly, but it'll last a little longer because it's metal instead of plastic. Adds just a tiny bit of weight to it, and then it's got an aluminum grip, so it feels a little bit different on the grip. Overall though, the silver color is not drastically different. Some of the all colors that they've done with the 580 have been different anodized colors, which makes it stand out a little bit more. This is really pretty subtle, but we have some of those now, so you can check those out. And then the last thing that we got in that we weren't quite expecting yet was the Pelikan M205 in blue marbled. So this is a new regular color. This is not a special edition or anything. And we originally were kind of on the fence about carrying it, even though it's blue. We were on the fence, but honestly we got so many questions about it, and then we put it on the site, started getting a lot of email notifications, signups, so we said, okay, I guess we're going to carry this thing. So it's an M205, so it's rhodium trim, stainless steel nib, it is a piston fill, it has an ink window, it's a very dark smoke ink window, but you can definitely see the ink when it's in there. The piston is really smooth on these pens. That's definitely a plus. And it has a removable nib unit too, which makes it easy for cleaning. And then the blue on this, they used to have the blue, but they changed it, so it's a more vibrant blue now. You can see how that really pops, and I gotta say, it pops nicely. This is really good, really clean looking. So good job on this Pelikan. So we have those on our site now as well. All right, that's it for the zoomed in phase. You can stop looking at my teeth and my stubble, because I've not shaved in a couple days. All right, so let's get into the rest of it, shall we? All right, I am going to kick it off with a hard question here. Normally I like to put the pen and writing questions in the front, but I'm going to put the business question in the front here. This is from J1448 on Instagram, as well as many others who I'm sure have the same sentiment. Why did you decide to change the way people enter Monday Matchup giveaways? Okay, so for context, for those of you who don't know about Monday Matchup, it has been an Instagram exclusive contest that we started doing 2 years ago, a little bit over 2 years ago on Instagram. And the idea behind it was we would take an ink, take a pen, match them together, and there's your matchup. So we called it Monday Matchup because we love alliteration, and voila, you have your Monday Matchup. And then as we started to do it, we had some in-house talent here who like to draw stuff, so we said, let's draw with the ink and the pen. And then it kind of grew from there, and then we said, hey, let's turn it into a contest. We're inking up the pen anyway. Let's go ahead and just give away what we're inking up. That was the original intent. So honestly, the original intent behind Monday Matchup was purely just to be like, hey, let's do something that's kind of fun. We can show a little bit of artwork. We can have something, maybe create a hashtag that people can share. And then really it wasn't the contest that was the concrete foundation behind Monday Matchup. It was, let's create this hashtag and help people to want to share pictures of whatever ink and pen that they're using. It didn't have to be like a matching pen and color or anything like that. It was like, just show your ink and pen that you're using for your Monday. And that was the original intent. And the contest literally was something that was like, okay, well, I guess we'll just give it away so that, we're already inking it up and everything anyway. So rather than us having to put it on our bottom shelf or find out something else to do with it, we'll just go ahead and give it away and just wow people. It was never like, let's, get as many Instagram people as we can. And, obviously there's benefits to it, like, getting more subscribers and things like that. That's been a nice to have, but that was not necessarily the original intention. So that's purely for background. We've been doing it for 2 years now. There's a lot of people now that are participating in the contest, several hundred people that have been participating in the contest every week. And when you get to the point where there's several hundred people, and literally the way that we have had up to this point to actually go through and pick all the winners is we have to scroll through the hashtag, look at the timestamps and everything to know when someone posted within the 24 hours of when we posted our contest link, and then we would have to literally catalog every single one of them, assign a number, and then pick through a random number generator and make sure it's fair, and then reach out to that individual and then say, hey, you won. It's a several hour process. every single week. It's very cumbersome. It's very manual. That's one kind of downfall about the way that Instagram does things sometimes, is it doesn't make it super easy to do this type of stuff. That's why things like Rafflecopter and other type of giveaway conglomeration third-party software have come about, is because it handles the logistics of that stuff much, much better. So right off the bat, let me go ahead and say that's some context and some background. So we've had this contest for a number of years. It's been a great community builder. A lot of people share their money matchup stuff. It's a lot of fun. A lot of people, it's really just the contest has been, hey, use the hashtag and you automatically get entered into the contest. Super seamless, super easy. Really, the contest was kind of a nice to have, and the community building was really the main intention of it. So the challenge that we've had in the last several months, really, as we've been talking about it as a team, is the logistics of it are getting very complicated. Specifically, there are some factors like Instagram changed their algorithm, so it's a little bit more difficult for us to make sure that we are catching everybody that posted within the correct time frame. So we are like super paranoid about not missing anybody in the contest portion, so it's taken even longer to be able to catalog everything. And then we've also noticed an increase in the number of people that are trying to do dual entries and spamming and trying to kind of cheat the system. And because we have a very manual process, it's not always easy for us to catch that stuff. Sometimes it's obvious and sometimes we're not 100% sure. So there have been some things that's like, oh gosh, this has really become pretty cumbersome to do. What can we do to kind of adjust this to help ourselves out as this has grown, while also still maybe getting some benefit to everybody? So we thought, okay, we've used Rafflecopter, something that's come out just within the last year or so, at least that's when we've been aware of it, which is a third-party software that captures the information for the contest, goes through, makes sure that there's no duplicates or any spammers or anything like that, picks a winner, and then because you enter your email into it, you automatically have people's contact information for when they win. That's really that's the only reason we collect an email through Rafflecopter. Now, some of the complaints that we got, I'm getting ahead of myself here. So the issues that we had, and there's a lot of feedback. I read through it all. My team's read through it all and responded to as much of it as we've been able to, which I think is pretty much all of it. The feedback has been, hey, you guys were not clear about this contest. The reasons that you said you were making this change make us feel like you were trying to hoodwink us, or maybe you aren't truthful, that this was really just a business move and this really isn't something to help the community. How could you do this to us? There's extra clicks. Because essentially what happened is we took this from an Instagram only contest, entering just by including a hashtag on your post, which is super easy and very seamless for using on Instagram. And that was a huge benefit of doing it, absolutely, for sure. We added an extra step to it by necessity through requiring Instagram users to then put their email into Rafflecopter. The hashtag thing has not gone away. That community building aspect of it is still going. We did not kill the hashtag. That is absolutely not it. It's just not automatically entering you into the Rafflecopter part of the contest anymore. So it's an extra step. Definitely have gotten a lot of feedback about that. A lot of people don't like the extra step. Some people don't like Rafflecopter and have had bad experiences with that, which the thing I want to say about Rafflecopter is we had not heard up until this week's contest that people had issues with like having their email, reused and put onto other, email notification lists and newsletters and stuff like that after they put on Rafflecopter. Rafflecopter, it can, if it captures the email, but they don't do anything with it. It's in their terms and conditions. Whatever other contests you may have entered in, they must have sold the list or done something somewhat unscrupulous, which I imagine may be some people's motives for catching these emails and giving stuff away like that, which is not great, I will say. We are not doing that. The only thing we're doing, we're not even putting you on our own newsletter with the Rafflecopter entries. The only thing we're doing is looking up the winner and then emailing you. The rest of it is not getting used, they store securely, and it does not get sold off. So that's our experience with Rafflecopter, and we've done other contests on Rafflecopter through it, advertise on Instagram, like the Thursday Things annual giveaway thing, and then had experience with it that way and hadn't heard any of this feedback. So that caught us a little bit off guard, and I'm very sorry for anybody that's had that experience previously. Obviously, we don't want to do that, and I'm sorry that that has been the case. I will say, I just want to apologize, about the whole communication that we had with the change in the contest rules. It did not help that it was a holiday last week, and so we did not have Monday matchup. So we were coming off of not having communicated about it for a week, and then we changed the contest rules. That was something that, in retrospect, we wish we had done differently. Also, we were not as crystal clear on the rules as we thought we were. Part of it was, now there's ways to enter on different platforms, and it ended up where we did not polish up on Instagram to be as clear as we could. And then we have a contest rules page in general on our website that also could have been clearer specifically to this one contest. So that was a learning experience on our part, and I really want to apologize and take full responsibility for that. That was my fault, and I am really sorry that we were not clear about that. That said, there are opportunities for us to clear it up a little more and be a little clearer about it. I know some of the feedback that we'd gotten on Instagram was, guys, this was a terrible move. You should roll this back immediately. I'm going to unsubscribe. I'm going to do all these things. The thing that I want to say is, please just give us the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to give you my whole spiel here. Try and explain this stuff, but I really just want you to give us the benefit, if nothing else, even if you say this is a terrible way to go about this contest, you've killed the love of Instagram for me, and this is not for me at all, please just understand that we try to add a lot of value to the community. We try to post a lot of really cool stuff, and just give me the benefit of the doubt that I'm not trying to pull a fast one on you here. I shoot these videos, we post tons and tons and tons of content for the betterment of the community. And yes, I understand contests and stuff like that get kind of sticky, but just give me the benefit of the doubt and not immediately going to the place of, yeah, you really tried to pull a fast one on us. That really was not the intent at all. So some things that were unclear that I can clear up a little bit here is there was something that we had on our contest rules page about 1 email per entry. And then underneath that it says, unless otherwise noted in the contest. When we posted on Instagram specifically for this contest, we said, now there's more ways to enter, or your chances of entering your chances of winning are better. So that was not the best wording on our part. Yes, your chances of winning are increased because you can post on multiple platforms. That was really more of a cross-platform specific kind of thing. On Instagram, yes, technically, now you're having to take an extra step, and there are other ways to enter on other platforms. So legitimately, there were complaints about you posted saying our chances are better of winning, but now there's other ways to enter, so really our chances are diluted. So I will say, okay, that was a misstep on our part in terms of how we communicated that. It was not intentional. I promise you that. It was not intentional, but that is how it looked, and I'm really sorry for that. Please just accept my apology on that one. The difficult thing about it is it has been an Instagram exclusive contest thus far, and for a long time we've been getting feedback on other platforms about, well, I don't have an Instagram account, or I don't want an Instagram account. Why are you guys being favoritists towards Instagram for this account, for this contest? Why don't you open it up and do some other things? And I'm like, well, yeah, that's legitimate, and we've been thinking about that for some time. And that was part of the decision to go with this move. So yes, for those who were saying yeah, guys, why don't you just fess up? This was a business move. This really wasn't purely for the betterment of Instagram users and stuff like that. Our intention was not to communicate hey, this is a pure win for Instagram users. And then I think that's where a lot of the resentment came from, was you guys said that this was better, but it's really not. And yeah, you're right. It's not a win just for Instagram. It is a little bit harder now to do it. It's an extra step, and it is more complicated. And I agree, and I am sorry. That's something that we knew going into it, and we did not communicate that properly. So I'm sorry for that, for you Instagram loyalists there who have been doing the contest for a while. You are legitimate in that complaint, and that is something that I have had to accept in this whole move. However, it's not purely just like I want more subscribers everywhere and I just want to grow my business and screw you guys for you build a community, but I don't care. That's really, guys, that's not the intention here. We've been trying to build this great community on Instagram, and we have a great community, and Monday Matchup is a part of that, you know, and it's still a part of that because the hashtag is still there. The contest is still there, available for those who want to enter. It's an extra step, and I realize that. But also, we wanted to broaden it to others on our other platforms, since we have other platforms, and really make it part of that. So that's kind of the basic overview of the whole thing. And I want to make sure I took a lot of notes on this, and I wanted to be sure that I kind of covered everything. So forgive me. I'm trying to speak genuinely and from my heart here, as well as make sure I covered everything. So I'll kind of close this out by saying that whenever there's making a change like this, especially a contest that we've been doing it every week for 2 years, any change to it is going to feel really dramatic, and I expected some pushback like this. It was a little more pushback than I expected, and a lot of that I really understand, and part of that was just like communication that we could have done better on our part. So all I ask from you folks on Instagram is to just give us a couple of weeks to see how it works, see how it feels, and we'll continue to take your feedback, and then we're going to reevaluate. Okay, so it's not like oh gosh, this is a total bomb, we need to stop it right away. But absolutely, for those of you that feel that way, just know, okay, we are like, I immediately emailed my team last night and said, hey, let's meet first thing in the morning, we got to discuss this. We had a good half-hour conversation with the whole team just about this contest, and said, guys, you know, what happened, what's going on, what do we do from here, what am I going to say in Q&A when I have to talk about it this afternoon, because I record this on Wednesday afternoon. And that's where we're at for right now. So give us a couple of weeks to figure it out. And if it ends up being a total bust, I will completely fess up and we'll figure out where to go from there. But let's just see how it feels and see if overall it's the best thing. And honestly, just please, I really want the best for everybody. And there's a lot of things to take into consideration with this. There's probably, more creative things that we'll look to do in the future. This is just something that we kind of had to do because the logistics of managing it were getting too overwhelming, and it wasn't as easy for us to keep it going as it had been back when it was smaller. And we really have learned a lot through this whole experience. So we really appreciate the feedback, and we really encourage the feedback. So what we're actually going to do to make it even more clear is we're going to draft a blog post and put the specific contest rules so that we have it all centralized in one place, and then we can centralize some of the feedback too, and have that all in one place, and we can be super clear, and we can update it if we aren't initially clear. That's one challenge with putting contest rules and stuff on Instagram, is you can edit it for a little bit, but then after a certain amount of time passes, we can't edit it anymore. So that was, again, part of the challenge that made it even more complicated. So we're going to do a blog post, so look for that coming out very soon. And then if you want to email us too, if you want to give us direct feedback, you can email us at social@gouletpens.com, and you can get us that feedback as well. So that's what I got. Hopefully I represented everything here well. Again, go ahead, put the target on me and go ahead and ask me whatever feedback you have, and I'll answer it. My team will help out. We are all just wanting the best for everybody here, and we just want to give away some stuff, that's all. We're not trying to pull one over on you. All right, let's get into some little more lighthearted questions this week, shall we? I wanted to hit that one first because I knew that would be the more difficult one for me to take on. So this week I have some pen and writing questions. So this is from Pavel V on Facebook. Hi Brian, could you recommend a fountain pen for med student? Good ink capacity and possibility to disinfect the pen without worries of damaging the pen are the main points. I'm definitely not a med student or anyone in the medical field by any means, so please take everything I say with a grain of salt. That said, I've had a lot of customers who've been doctors and people that have been in the medical industry to a degree, and I have never really had anybody raise concern or even really give me feedback about disinfecting pens that are in use. And I'm sure it depends on how much of you know, you're dealing with your pens and a lot of different factors of what it is you're coming into contact with in your specific profession. Again, definitely not a doctor here, but I did, just out of my own curiosity's sake, did some searching on like disinfecting things in hospitals and stuff like that, and I found there's a CDC guideline for disinfecting and sterilization in healthcare facilities. I found a document, it was from 2008, so it's a little old, but I found it, and this is purely for entertainment purposes. Again, not a medical professional. So I looked through there and looked at different classifications of things and stuff like that, and it talks about like computer keyboards and, you know, things like that that are considered non-critical items, which I believe that a pen would fit into that category. Basically things that you're coming in contact with intact skin with no open mucous membranes or anything like that. I think a pen would usually fit into that category. There's no like specific guidelines that they have for sterilizing non-critical items that I was able to read in that thing. Again, look to your medical professional, lawyer, whoever, about that kind of thing if that's something like really of concern for you. Getting back to things that I actually know something about, specifically you're talking about a pen. If it's a pen with plastic components, you don't want to use any kind of solvents or alcohols because it's made of plastic. So if you're using any solvents, it's going to melt it. If you're using alcohol, it won't cause as much damage. If it's really diluted and stuff like that, it may not really cause any damage, but alcohol will also break down the plastic, depending on the type of plastic that it is, of course. But generally, the types of plastic that are used in pens are not the right type that are good for disinfecting with alcohol or solvents. So make sure that you're not doing that. I don't really know what else you would use, but just be aware of that. And then any metal components that you have, you want to keep chlorine off of those generally, especially stainless steel and aluminum. Well, in aluminum, you want to keep away from ammonia. So make sure that if you're disinfecting any of those, that you're not using any of those materials. So back to recommendations that I have, of course, keeping all this other stuff in mind, I think there is a number of pens that could work well based on your criteria, which was good ink capacity. I think the TWSBI Eco is a great choice. It has a good ink capacity, a very durable pen, pretty reliable writer as well, and very affordable. So that one could work well. Pilot Metropolitan too. I'd be even less concerned about disinfecting this one because it's anodized aluminum, which is going to be pretty durable no matter what it is that you're using to clean it. So that one for sure would work. Not as great of an ink capacity as the TWSBI, but still really solid. Lamy Safari, this is a plastic pen as well, but very durable workhorse pen, could work really well for you. Also a possibility would maybe be Nemesine. So again, another plastic one, but it's only 20 bucks, and could be a good one for you. Lots of nib options and stuff. That's a newer brand that we've recently started carrying. So specifically if you're a med student, I know you're not rolling in the dough yet, but those could be some good pens. All of those are really pretty affordable. So I tried to stick in that range to give you some good recommendations. All right. Next question I have, this is from George H. on Facebook. Over the last 6 months, I've ordered quite a few pens. Many of them came with cartridges that I don't use, so my desk is rolling with them. Is there a way to tell a standard international from a proprietary by sight? Yes, so to give you an idea, this is my bin of cartridges. Now, not all of these cartridges are ones that came out of the pens, but I personally have so many different kinds of cartridges that I actually have them bagged up by different type. So I have standard international longs, I have Lamy, I have Monograppa, which is still in the original box, I have Parker. So I just put them in little Ziploc bags. That's the easiest way I find to organize them. But granted, if it's like one cartridge, maybe you're not going to do that. I would say, generally speaking, that's not a bad way to go if you plan to save them for a long time. Really, honestly, if you never use cartridges and you have one cartridge and you know you're never going to use it, do you really need to hang on to it? Like, I don't know, that's going to be your call. But I would say if you end up just with a bunch of cartridges rolling around and they're just going to roll around forever in your drawer, if you think about Greg McEwen with his book Essentialism here, he specifically talks about like old pens and stuff like that. If they're in your drawer for more than a year, you should get rid of them. So maybe you could find if you don't want to throw them out, maybe you could talk to a avid fountain pen user and say, I got a bag of random cartridges. Do you want them? You can have them. And I'm sure someone out there would take them. That also said, if you want to actually use them, them and rediscover what they are. Usually, if they're something like Lamy or some proprietary ones, they might have the name actually on it. They may not, though. Not all of them do that. So if you want to go just by sight, if it has the name right on it, that makes it super easy. Otherwise, you have to go just by the general shape, which can be a little more complicated. But if you go to gouletpens.com, you look up ink cartridges, you can see there's a filter on the left-hand side of our site, and it has proprietary and standard international as a feature filter on the sidebar there. So the standard international ones are pretty easy because pretty much, you know, they're easy to tell from most others. They're these kind of short little guys. These are the ones that usually come with your pens. These short little guys that kind of taper and then have like a very tapered part at the end. Very, very standard looking. But other ones will be kind of all over the place. The proprietary ones, some of them look really similar to each other. So that's where it can really help to go to our site. If you look up the proprietary ones, you can actually see, we have pictures of all the cartridges there. You can see what they look like. Or if you got the pen from us, we usually try to photograph it with a cartridge if it comes with it. We don't always do that though, now that I think about it, because sometimes there's inconsistencies whether cartridges come or not. So I think maybe we've gone away from including cartridges on most of those. But anyway, you can at least get an idea to know whether the pen that you bought comes with a standard international or whether it comes with a proprietary one. And then you could go and look up that proprietary cartridge and see exactly the shape, what it looks like, see if it looks like the same thing. And worst case, you could just go and take the cartridge and try it in your different pens. Usually, they're not going to fit into the pen unless it's the actual pen that it's made for, because the proprietary ones are often different enough where you're like, yeah, this clearly just isn't fitting at all. So that's the advice I have for you. I hope it helps you out. All right, @MoveTrue on Twitter. What are the pros and cons of snap cap versus screw cap? All right, let's take a look at it here. Snap cap, Pilot Metropolitan. Screw cap, now let's try and keep in the same price range. TWSBI Eco, okay? So snap caps, I gotta say, I never used to care about snap caps, and I really love snap caps these days. Part of the advantage of snap caps, very quick, right? Very easy to uncap, write a quick note, cap it again. Very easy motion to do. You can often do it with one hand, write your thing. If you're talented enough, you can kind of scoop it up and close it with one hand too. Very easy. Most pens are push to post, so that doesn't really matter as much, but capping it is very quick. Big deal there. And also, you know, with the design of the pen, there's no threads when there's a snap cap. So often the step is not quite as intense because you don't have to have a lot of extra material in here to cut threads into. And you will not have any threads to hold your fingers onto as you're writing. So a lot of people who are really bothered by having their fingers on threads will immediately look to a snap cap to be able to do it. Those are some good pros. Some cons is that on some models of pens, because you're not relying on a mechanical threading system, you're relying basically on something that is pressure related. Over time, whatever mechanism that they've devised for doing that snap cap can possibly weaken over time, and the snap will not be as firmly grabbing anymore. That is the potential eventually with everything will do that. How long it will take will vary a lot pen to pen, but that tends to be some of the complaints that I hear about them. There also can be less secure, specifically if you're carrying it around on the clip, like if you have a pen loop or something on your notebook and it's being carried around just by the top. The weight of the bottom of the pen, if it's really being jostled around or if you hit it just the right way, can actually separate it from the rest of the pen that's being held in there. Or I've heard of some people that will carry the pen around and they're running around or doing whatever activity, it's clipped in their pocket and the pen can actually come separated. That doesn't happen often, but there's certainly the potential is there more than with a screw cap pen. So slightly less secure. And then also this will vary quite a lot, but it may or may not seal as well. This will really depend on pen model as well, because there's certainly screw caps that don't seal as well. When I say that, I mean like they have a tendency to dry out. But usually the screw cap, they can devise a little more stuff inside there to be able to, you know, kind of seal it up nicely, and it gets to a nice like place where you can kind of use your own pressure to get it in place there, whereas the snap you really can't control that. So that's kind of part of it. Screw cap, let's talk about those. So pros, they're very secure. This thing is not going to come undone. You'd have to literally twist it to come undone. So the chance of it coming undone on its own is very low. It's going to last a long time because it's mechanical threads that are cut into the pen. So unless those become physically damaged or something, it's going to last probably longer than your, you know, whatever snap mechanism that you have inside here. And then it can often seal better. Kind of a lot of the cons that I just said about the snap cap end up being pros for the other one. The screw cap cons is it usually takes 2 hands to undo it, which sometimes is not a big deal. Like this TWSBI Eco is not too bad. It's just 1 rotation that it takes to do it, which if it's 1 rotation or maybe 1 1/4, you can do it in 1 single motion. But if it ends up being much more than that, you can end up having to do this, reposition your hands and do it again to take and undo, which doesn't sound like that big of a deal, but it is a big deal if you're capping and uncapping all day long. It can slightly, you know, take slightly longer to undo it. So again, to each his own. Really, there's a lot of design aspects to these pens that come into play, and certainly different manufacturers make them for different reasons. I will say, in general, you tend to see snap caps happen on less expensive pens. There certainly are more expensive pens that are snap caps. Usually, the more expensive pens that are snap caps, they design more elaborate capping systems to keep them from weakening and stuff like that. Think of the Lamy 2000 as a great example. That is a snap cap, but that doesn't mean you have to worry about your Lamy 2000 not working in 2 years because the snap is worn out. They design those more elaborately than they would, say, a Platinum Preppy or something like that. That's literally just like extra plastic that's on the cap that's relying on pressure to get that snapping motion. So snap caps sometimes get a bad reputation for caps cracking and, you know, coming off and stuff like that. But I think part of that is they tend to use snap caps and build it more into the cap on those cheaper pens than they do for something like the Pilot Metropolitan. It has a little bit more elaborate mechanism than that, certainly something like the Lamy 2000 would as well. So it all depends on the design of the pen, but hopefully it gives you a little bit idea what's going on with the two. All right, Mylo M on Facebook. What's the name of the flat top piece of the nib on the Pilot Justus 95? Also, in your opinion, does it make a small or big difference in line variation? And then Mylo went on to talk about how they bought this pen, but haven't used it because it's a really expensive pen, and I think you should definitely start using it because it's a great pen. And he asked, are you alone in that state of mind? No, definitely. I think there's a lot of people that buy an expensive pen and they're kind of shy from using it. That might last a little while until you realize it's just a pen. Just go ahead and use it. Do I know of any other pens similar to the Justus 95 with this flat piece on top? No, I don't. So that's an easy one to answer. This is the first one I've seen that has this design. I'm not going to say historically it's never happened before because at this point, historically, pretty much everything's happened with fountain pens. But what you're talking about here is on this pen, there's this bar at the top, and you notice it has this little H and S and all this stuff. The H stands for hard, the S stands for soft. So what that means is as you twist it towards the soft side, the bar goes into the pen. And as you twist it, okay, so I should not twist the pen, I should just twist the cap. So as I twist it in the direction of the hard side, the bar is coming out. And what's happening, this is actually a physical bar that's separate from the rest of the nib. So the pen itself has a soft nib, a soft nib just like the Pilot Falcon, or just like the soft nib on the Custom 912, very similar to that. But if you are twisting it like that, you can see the bar is moving up. So it will basically go from being a soft nib like the Falcon to being a harder nib, to be really not much line variation at all. How much of a difference does it make? If you're using it, I'm going to see if I can demonstrate this in any sort of reliable manner here. Let me just try to grab a notebook of some kind, which I should have thought about earlier. Let me see if I can do it. Okay. I'm going to see if I can zoom in really good and show you what's going on here. Oh yeah, look at that neck. Okay. Oh boy, can I even see what's going on here? Okay, so here we go. Oh gosh, this is so bright. Maybe I'll show this from the side. There we go. So you can see there's the hard one. So I'm getting a little bit of bend, a little bit of springiness, but I'm really getting no line variation. Okay, those tines are not spreading out at all. See that? Okay, and then if I go to the soft side, sorry, I don't have this pen inked up, so I can't really show you. Whoops, unscrewed the pen. I can't really show you. Okay, and then if I go to the soft side, you can see they're much softer. Can you even see that right? Ugh! I'm like seeing it backwards in my monitor. There, you can see there is some noticeable tine spreading going on there. So it makes a pretty decent difference. You go from, you know, pretty good line variation, and then you can adjust it anywhere in between to no line variation really at all, to having just kind of a generally, you know, springy nib. So it's really up to you. And I would say you don't want to overdo it. You don't want to buy this pen, you know, because it's adjustable. People might think, oh, I can get even more flex out of this than I could on a Falcon or something like that. It's not really what it's for, even though it costs more than the Falcon. That's really not what it's all about. Plus, another benefit of this pen is it's got the Con 70, higher ink capacity. What's up? But no, so it's going to perform maximally like a Falcon would, but it allows you to have it be even less pressure. Technically, yes, you could just use it on the soft setting and just not write with as much pressure, and then you wouldn't have the line variation. But if you know you have a heavy hand and you want to have that kind of hard non-line variation feature to it, or if you just think the pen is really beautiful, it's a nice long pen, it's got a little bit of weight to it, so just as a pen itself, it's really nice. You have that option as well. So a little bit about the Justus 95. I hope you enjoy it. It's a great pen. You should definitely use it since you already have it. All right, got a ink question. This is from Kelly Peeples on YouTube. I'm brand new to fountain pens ink, so perhaps, brand new to fountain pen inks, mixed up my words there. So perhaps I'm naive, but I'm surprised that ink companies don't run quality control tests. Maybe the more expensive inks are quality tested, but in an ideal world, I would think each batch would be checked and adjusted or checked and rebranded if the original hue is impossible to recreate. Are hues really that volatile? So there's a bit of mystery around the whole ink making process. It's very proprietary. There is certainly an element of mystique around how a lot of these inks are made. You know, I think it's the kind of thing that really varies from one manufacturer to another. Certainly a smaller boutique manufacturer like Noodler's or Private Reserve or somebody that's just making it out of their house could be a very different process from what you would see from like Mont Blanc or Pilot or something like that. So yes, I think with the more expensive brands, you're going to see more of that quality testing, which is why you really never hear about any hue variants in Pilot or Roshizuku. You just don't hear about that. I don't know whether that's like because of just additional process they have. I mean, that's Japanese quality control for you. It's probably part of what you're getting, but I don't know how much of that is built into the price of the ink or if that's just kind of the way they do it anyway, and that's just how they would do it even if the ink was $10. I definitely think that there's factors within the raw components going on. You know, it's interesting. I've talked to Nathan of Noodler's. He's the guy that makes them. He makes them all by hand. So right off the bat, Noodler says like there might be some slight batch variation just because of the fact that it's mixed by hand. And there are some inks that Nathan makes that literally are mixed by hand for the intention of batch variation. For example, the Noodler's Warden series, he actually mixes those to a slightly different variation. I'm talking about like Bad Blue Heron and stuff like that. He actually mixes those by the bottle because, excuse me, there are permanent dye components that are in that ink that he has explained to me act sort of like a combination lock, so that if you really wanted to try to match a specific ink on the page to a specific bottle, you could technically do that because he mixes every bottle to a different ratio within those permanent components. But I don't know how much that affects the color. I don't hear a lot of color variation with those specific inks, but there are certainly other colors that come about, not just Noodler's, but like any other brand, where there will be some slight variation from one to another. I know specifically with Noodler's because I've talked directly with Nathan about this kind of thing that, you know, it's the kind of thing that they're not just like making these dyes. Like dye components come from other manufacturers. So there's raw components that they're buying from other manufacturers, you know, and let's be honest, these aren't dyes that are made specifically for the fountain pen ink industry, right? Like these are dye components that are made for a lot of other reasons. It could be, I'm just trying to think of like things where I know they use a lot of dyes, like maybe the printing industry. My parents were in the printing industry for a while. I believe it's a different type of stuff. You're dealing with pigments and stuff, but maybe there's something going on there. Certainly like textiles and stuff like that. There's definitely dyes. And those are much, much larger industries than you have with fountain pens. So I think even if you think about like some of the largest fountain pen ink makers out there, they pale in comparison. too, the textile mills and stuff like that that are out there that are buying dyes by the train load, versus like the amount of dye that would be used in fountain pen ink. So I think what ends up happening sometimes is you have smaller manufacturers, smaller being very relative to much larger industries in general that are using these dyes. And a manufacturer who makes these dyes may make a slight change and not communicate that to everyone. Believe it or not, that kind of thing happens all the time. So an ink that may have been perfectly stable for 5 years, all of a sudden changes, they give no notice of any kind, and yes, okay, you could say, well, these ink manufacturers should test and swab every single batch that they make. Yes, that's certainly something they could do. It would take a lot of time for that to happen. So, and I think it's to the point where like the hues are stable enough where it doesn't warrant all those extra steps. Or if you do, you have to jack up the price a lot because it's a lot of extra labor to test it that much. These are all my speculations, by the way. This is not specific feedback. I've strayed away now from the specific feedback I've gotten from Nathan and others I've talked to generalize a little bit more with my impression, kind of what I know of business and time involved with this kind of stuff. When you're talking about manufacturing and quality control testing to that degree, there definitely becomes a law of diminishing returns. So for something as relatively low in price as a bottle of ink, and to put in that level of quality control testing over something that's really not that unstable, you're adding a lot of labor to something just to perhaps catch something that might happen only every few years, and it's just not that large of an industry to really be a problem, generally speaking. Now, I think that's why you see it more with larger brands that keep things more stable, like, the Pelicans and Montblancs and Pilots and all that kind of stuff, because they are really global brands. Other boutique ink makers, Diamine and Noodlers and Diatramentis and stuff like that, I don't know to what degree they're doing that kind of stuff. I literally don't know if they are, doing that to a great degree or to no degree. I imagine they have their own process they feel comfortable with, but again, it all comes down to what do they have time to do? What price are they trying to hit? A lot of these manufacturers are trying to keep the price as economical as possible, so they don't want to go adding more steps than are necessary. And I think like across the industry as a whole, the whole ink industry, it sounds like there's a lot of batch variation and problems and stuff like that. And certainly for us, whenever we hear about an ink color discrepancy, we always dive in and try and figure out what's going on. And sometimes, ink companies are just having a bad day and they make a bunch of stuff that doesn't turn out, or a dye component was changed on them, and even though the color looked okay, once it got mixed with the other dyes and reacted, maybe it did something weird. Sometimes some of these color shifts don't happen right away, but once they mix it in the bottle and it looks fine as it is, but 3 months later, once it's been sitting in their shop for a while and it makes it to a distributor and then it gets to a retailer, then it color shifts. That's happened before. We've seen that where the manufacturer's like, I did batch test it and it looked fine. And 3 months later, oh, actually the color shifted because this dye component now reacts differently. And it's a little complicated. There's a bit of chemistry involved with all this stuff. But in general, to kind of summarize it all, I think every manufacturer is doing things a little bit differently. In general, I don't think it's happening all that often, but definitely it is frustrated. This is where it really helps to have a retailer or a manufacturer who really stands behind their stuff, because sometimes kooky things happen. When they do happen, we'll always make it right. I know that's the approach that we take. It's like, oh, this color shifted? Yep, we'll make it right. Just don't even worry about it, we'll make it right. All right, I got 2 more questions for this week. It's a bit of a longer Q&A this week, but I know that Instagram one took a bit of time. So sealing wax, let's talk about this. The Desk of Lori on Instagram. Hey Brian, I'm getting married next year and would love to do some wax seals on invites. Congratulations. Can you talk about the Atelier Gargoyle wax and how it compares to the J. Herbin wax? Do you have a favorite? Well, I will talk about that. So, for years, we've been carrying the J. Herbin supple wax. So there's a distinction here because, both J. Herbin and Atelier Gargoyle make a variety of different waxes. The traditional sealing wax Also, what's sometimes known as king's wax is a brittle wax. And originally, for those of you that don't know your wax sealing history, this was the original like encrypted, 1Password, or whatever you want to call it. This was the original encryption device to show when a letter had been tampered with. So, kings and noble people of sorts would have a ring or some kind of other, device that would have their, crest or something, some demarcation that this was their genuine thing. They would use a brittle sealing wax. They would fold up a letter so that you could not open it or read it without breaking that seal. And if you broke the seal, it would crumble into a million pieces, and you would know that it had been tampered with. And then the information couldn't be trusted or something like that. Or whoever was delivering the letter would get like talking to. Maybe that's how they talked back then, but we're talking several hundred years ago here, so they weren't quite as maybe refined as we are today in our communication. But anyway, so these days, brittle wax is not super practical, because if it goes through the modern mail system, it involves automated sorting and devices and stuff like that. I'm going to tell you right now, don't bother sending it, and honestly, you might even get in trouble and your mail might not get delivered, because that stuff crumbles up and it just jams up their machines, and they really get frustrated when you send brittle wax through the mail. Modern companies have designed supple wax, which is very flexible wax. It's somewhat flexible in its stick form, but when you put it into an actual wax seal, you can like bend it and it will stick and it won't break and things like that. So both of these waxes that I'm talking about here right now, these are supple waxes. That's all we carry at Goulet Pens. But you can buy brittle waxes at a lot of places if you want to get that more traditional kind of vibe. I would recommend for your invites using supple wax. Okay, so we have J. Herbin. We've been carrying him for years. We actually came out the gate. J. Herbin is under the Exoclair family of brands: Clairefontaine, Rhodia, Quo-Vadis, and that was the first distributor that we ever had at Goulet Pens. So we actually started carrying this very early on. So if you look at a lot of my older wax seal videos, they go back way back to when I didn't know anything about how to shoot videos. The quality is not great, but the content's really solid, so it's still good, and that's why I've kept it up there, even though it's embarrassing quality. But that's okay. So it works really well, and you can get a pretty good amount of seals out of a stick like this. I've gotten upwards of 30 to 40 seals out of a single stick. It all depends on the wax that you're the size of the seal that you're using and how much depth there is to the engraving on the seal and stuff like that. So there's a bit of an art form, a bit of a trick to it. Atelier Gargoyle is a retailer, or a retailer manufacturer. So actually, when we first started carrying J. Herbin, we almost immediately started getting asked about the Atelier Gargoyle wax. But they only sold it direct. And we had reached out to them and they said, yep, we only sell it direct. But the quality, everybody said, the quality was really good, and a lot of people compared the two. And so we really just kind of had it out there for years of just like, well, hey, okay, you don't sell it except for direct. If that ever changes, let us know. Well, eventually they did change it, and so they reached out to us and said, hey, look, we're getting away from the selling direct thing, and we still will, but we're looking to go retail with this now. Would you be interested? And we were like, yeah. So we started to learn about this, and so that's why a lot of my older wax seal videos only include J. Herbin and not the Atelier Gargoyle, but it really functions very, very similarly. The biggest difference that you have between the two of these, the overall diameter and everything is very similar. The biggest difference, though, is the length. Obviously, I didn't even need to say that probably, but the length, it's about twice as long. However, they sell individually by the stick. The J. Herbins sold in a 4-pack. Cost more for these, so it ends up cost-wise being pretty similar for like per seal, if you will. The amount of wax you're getting in different forms is very, very pretty comparable. Another very noticeable difference you'll get between the two, which you can't see but you can smell. So they use essential oils in the Atelier Gargoyle, and it lasts. It will last for a while, to the point where it'll actually last when you mail the letter. the recipient will still be able to smell it. They'll have to, I mean, it might not be like wafting in the whole room, but certainly if they get it near their face, they might be like, that kind of smells. Or if they know what they're looking for, they can be, it smells kind of nice. I gotta say, like this stuff, we have it when we walk by in our warehouse. You can smell it because we have all the sticks there, and you can, it smells pretty good. They have somewhat different scents depending on which version you're getting, but they're all, you know, really nice scented. So the Jeroboam just smells like nothing. Doesn't smell good, bad, nothing. Just smells like nothing. So that's another big difference. And in actual use, they both perform very, very comparably. The end result is pretty comparable. I have found that particularly with some of these solid colors, not so much the metallics, but certain solid colors on the Atelier Gargoyle, it can take a little bit longer. Just not a lot, but a little bit longer to melt. Seems like the heat points may be a little bit higher, and so it takes a little bit more to melt it. And partly as a result of that, you can get a little more soot on the lighter colors like the ivory and the rose and stuff like that, especially if you're using a very low heat flame, like a cigarette lighter or something like that, or a candle. You can get some sooting. Some ways around that, you can use a higher heat source like a small butane torch, like a camping lighter that's got like a windproof flame. Or if you want to use like a small creme brulee torch, those work really well. Those things like really crank it up. Those work pretty well, but in general, when doing any type of wax seal, if you're using a very low heat flame, like a cigarette lighter, it's going to take a long time and it's going to cause more sooting. And sooting, what I mean by that is it's got like black marks and stuff that are in it, which can be kind of a cool effect, honestly, if you do it evenly and do it enough to it looks intentional. But if you're really trying to get a nice clean look on, say, your pink seals, if that happens to fit in your color scheme, you may want to stick with a higher heat source. But either way, I think if you think you would enjoy the essential oil smell, if you're doing it for like all day and sealing it, you might get kind of sick of it. So maybe you want to go the Jeroboam route. I don't know. Maybe you love essential oils and you'd really love to smell that all day long. It's really up to you. So I'll let you make that judgment call. I'm just here for giving you the information. Last question for this week. This is a troubleshooting one from Joe W. on Facebook. Okay, this is going to sound weird since everyone goes bananas over smooth nibs, but is there any way to make a nib slightly less smooth? I have a couple of pens that have glassy feel to the nib, but I'd like a bit more feedback since really smooth nibs are like fingernails on a chalkboard to me. I don't hear that a lot. So, any way to reverse the old micromesh smoothing process? Yes, you can. And in fact, the beauty of this is it's the same process as it is to smooth a nib. You're still doing the exact same thing, you're just trying to make it not be as smooth. So I have a couple of different tools. I actually don't sell any tools on my site to make a nib rougher because it's such an infrequent request. But I have some tools here. Micromesh really is your tool of choice. You can buy these. This is probably the easiest solution. You can go and buy these from just about any drugstore or Walmart, Target, like anything like that. Anything that has like a cosmetics department. It's a nail file. So they have essentially a 12,000 grit micro mesh on one side, and then they have the white and the black, which is even stiffer, grittier. So essentially, you can just use the same kind of smoothing pattern that you would prefer. Instead of using it on the micromesh side, use it on the white side. And if you want it even more abrasive, you can use it on the black. You probably won't want to go any more than the black on this because at that point it's going to start to really get nasty. They also make micromesh in these little abrasive pads if you prefer to do that. These are from my pen making days. I used to buy them in these foam backed pads, but they make those too. They make a variety of them. So you can go, the micromesh that we sell here for smoothing is 12,000 grit, which is really pretty fine. It feels almost like leather. It doesn't even feel like an abrasive. You can get all the way down to 1,500 grit. So that definitely has a noticeably different feel. And really, if you get all the way down to like a 1,500 grit micro mesh, to your fingers, it doesn't feel, you can definitely tell it's an abrasive, but it doesn't feel like 400 grit, or like 150 grit sandpaper, because it's not exactly the same grit ratio as they use on conventional sandpaper. It's a little higher numbers. But if you're using, a 1,500 grit on a fountain pen nib, it's going to feel as you're writing it, like on the micro mesh, it's gonna feel like you're like you're dragging it across an asphalt parking lot. Like that's how gritty it's really gonna feel. So I don't think you need to go any more than just a buffing stick like this. But you can also buy micro mesh in sheets like this. You can tell I've bought plenty of this over the years. I have a 1500 grit here on the back. This is just an assortment I bought. A lot of woodworking suppliers will have these. Oh yeah, look at that. You can hear how abrasive that is. That 1500, oh gosh, yeah, that is just way too much. But you know, see I've got an 8,000 here. 8,000 is the next step down that comes in these variety packs from 12,000. That would be probably the most you'd really want to go. There's a 6,000, there's a 4,000, but these are getting to be so gritty. I don't think you would like writing with that, even though if that's your preference. I don't think you would need that. So anyway, that's really about it. You just kind of take the pen. You know, of course, anytime you're doing any modification like this, especially if you're making it less smooth, you're taking your life into your pen's life into your own hands. Really, if you don't have a lot of training, figure 8 patterns can be an easy way to do it, or just kind of like do some motions like you would normally write. Another technique is to kind of, you know, hold the pen like this and smooth it. You just want to make sure that you're kind of smoothing it evenly. You don't want to just work on one spot and really wear it down, especially as you're getting to these coarser grits. If you really wear it on one spot, you can create flat spots, and that'll actually make it feel not just toothier, but actually scratchy because you've buffed out too much in one spot. So that's just something you got to be careful for. As you get to coarser and coarser grits, it's less forgiving, and you can make mistakes that are harder to undo. So just be aware of that, and take your time and be really cautious. And it's also better to do it when it's wet too. So do it when the pen's inked up, or just have water on it, and you know, do it like that. It helps to clear off some of the metal that you're taking off. It kind of acts like a slurry. And that's all I got for this week. So thank you so much. I appreciate you sticking with me on this kind of extended Q&A. My question for the week this week, actually I'm just kind of steering away completely away from the whole rest of the content from this week, but my question of the week for this week is, what fountain pen has surprised you the most for the better? So maybe you had low expectations, or maybe you just bought it on a whim and you're like, wow. Or you bought it and you're like, nah, this can't really be as great as I think it is. Oh my gosh, it's blown my mind. So which pen has surprised you the most for the better? I'd love to hear about that in the comments. Thank you so much if you're one of those 50,000 that has helped us to get to where we are so far. If you're not though, you could help us get to 50,200 or whatever the next milestone that we decide we want to celebrate. Honestly, I think if we ever hit 100,000 or something like that, I don't know what I'm gonna do. At some point, right, like you guys gotta stop being interested in this stuff, but I don't know, until you are, I'm gonna keep talking about it. So keep submitting your questions and I'll keep answering them in this Q&A. Really appreciate it. I'm very honored by the time that we spend together. Be sure to check out this stuff and a lot of other great things on gouletpens.com. Thanks so much for watching, and right on.